Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportBikeTrackGear.com. Today we're going to break down the Yoshimura racing full system install on our 2022 Yamaha R7 STG project bike. Okay, before we dive in, very important that you guys understand this. Please note, there is no license plate on this bike. This system is designed for closed course operation only. That would include racing and or track days. If you decide to do something else with this, that is something you're doing on your own, and Yoshimura nor STG have nothing to do with the decisions that you have made. It's important that we say that. And as everyone knows here, everything that we do ultimately ends up being turned into a track bike. We're working through that as we go through the season. We're trying to finish up our Moto America gig here with Max and Joey and still keep the project going. So hopefully as we go through the year, this thing gets closer and closer to racetrack ready. Focusing now on the Yosh install. This is their works exhaust finish. Right, really excited. It's got a little bit of heat in the pipe. You can already see it starting to turn color almost immediately. It went from this real light gray to like some titanium type coloration. I'm excited to see what that looks like as we get some more heat cycles in this pipe. In the video, we're going to cover the entire install, right? From removing all the bodywork, removing the OEM system, installing the Yosh system, and reinstalling the bodywork. If you have any questions, you leave those in the comment section of this video. I answer all that stuff myself. I'm always here to help make sure you got the same result out of your project that we got from ours. So some of the details here. This system weighs 8.3 pounds on our shipping scale. The OEM system weighed 16.75. You're talking 50% plus weight savings, which is a nice advantage. In this video, we're going to give you a comparison between the OEM exhaust note and the Yosh exhaust note. This system ships complete with a noise insert. We did not install it for the purpose of this video. You know, we take this bike to the dyno down the road, getting it tuned and stuff. If it were to make more power with that in, we would probably give it a shot. Otherwise, we wouldn't use it. Okay, you do what suits you best, but just know that that piece is in fact included with this exhaust. Tools that we used to complete our install. Let's go ahead and break that down right now. I've still got them all laying here. I've got a 3/8 T-handle with a 12 mil socket. I've got a 1/4 inch T-handle with a 10 mil socket. Many things could be substituted for either one of those. For the exhaust header bolts, I used a stubby 3/8 ratchet, 6-inch extension, and a 12 millimeter flex socket. Got a 13 mil wrench. Got a 10 mil wrench. I've got 3 T-handles here. I've got a 6, I got a 5, and I got a 4. A stubby Phillips screwdriver. A pair of side cutters. I think I used 3 or 4 cable ties. We used a 4 millimeter Allen. I used this little pick. It's angled just to remove some of the push pins on the bike. And then I have a 17 millimeter wrench that we use for the exhaust sensor. This handy dandy spring puller is something that Yoshimura includes with the system. We did ultimately use that to help install the exhaust springs on the canister, okay? You can use this video to kind of supplement Yoshimura's instructions, right? Which I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't look at. One thing I do wanna tell you up front is clean the exhaust. When you're done with your install, before you ever start it, clean the exhaust off. I saw that Yoshimura had a little note inside of the package that indicated they want to see you use rubbing alcohol, which we had a bottle of here, and I used that to clean the surface of the pipes off before we ever started and put heat into it. Why do you want to do that? Your skin has a lot of oils in it, plus it's a greasy thing you're working on. You're touching the exhaust. You get that grease on the pipe, you don't clean it off, you start it up, and all of a sudden your pipe looks like shit. Nobody wants a shitty looking pipe. Everybody wants their pipe to look amazing, especially when it's the Yosh work system that they specifically treat so it gets this really cool coloration as it warms up. I think now we're about ready to dive into the install right now. Okay, we're going to open up this exhaust install by removing the bodywork so we can have the access necessary in order to go ahead and replace the system. Got a couple of push pins down here. You have to push in on the center to release each one. Go ahead and pull those out. Look at that. Lucas even turned on the light for you guys with this one. We're pulling out all the stops today. Got a 4mm internal hex back here. Try to pay attention to where all the fasteners come from so you have a easier time reassembling. Of course, you can always use this as a reference too. All right, got those two, same length. We're going to come inside the inner fender here up front, and there are going to be a total, this is going to be almost impossible to show. There's going to be a total of 3 of these plastic clips on each side. They have a Phillips head screw on the inside to release them. You ever so gently rotate it, right, counterclockwise, and you see it kind of jump up. These things have a history of not wanting to come apart. All I can say is light hands, you don't need a lot of pressure, and once you get it to jump up just a little bit like that, you reach in there, pull it out, that allows the pin to release. There's a total of 3 of those. One of those is down here on the bottom. Another one is up here at about a mid-level. And if you rotate it too far, what you'll actually find is it collapses again upon itself. So just real easy. Sometimes they do kind of hang up in there too. Just be patient. Get that out. We'll have to do that on both sides, of course. 4mm internal hex here. And there is down here, there is a, grabbing the right spot, there is a push pin that goes through rubber grommet. I'll show you that when I get this off. That is right here. And this kind of gets off this mid-level fairing. Okay, put this to the side so it doesn't get damaged. Take off this fastener here. We're going to leave these pieces connected. We'll go over to the other side. And got 4mm internal hex down here. Make sure we don't lose any of this stuff here. Now we have to get inside the fender here. Doing these left-handed and blind. So hopefully Lucas is able to get in there and give you guys a good look at this. Or at least the best possible look that he can. That one wants to hang up just a little bit in there. Once I separate the fairings, I'll try and pop that back out. I'm going to come back over here. Let's go ahead and take these off. Once again, 4mm internal hex. You got a clip that goes through rubber grommet, and with this, you kind of want to like rotate this like this, right? Just put a little pressure, kind of rock that. There's some clips that need to lock in place. By rotating it like that, it releases them. We have a 4mm internal hex here. 10mm hex nut here. All right, we're just going to leave this fairing together as one piece. Go set this out of the way. Okay, now we need to remove this little fairing here, kind of under the headlight. There are two more of these wonderful plastic clips that have the Phillips head in the center. That one's wanting to stay in there. So they both kind of want to be there. Okay, then we have two 4mm internal hex fasteners right up here towards the front. Using a Allen wrench this time instead of the T-handle. It's just for clearance sake. This works a little bit better. There's that fastener. Okay, now we still have both of those clips in there. Once you have the bolts out, you're able to kind of tug on it a little bit. You can see that they both just kind of jumped right out of there, no problem. We'll collect those. We're going to lower the bike down and begin disassembling from the top. Okay, now we need to remove these two top panels, right, from both sides, kind of a mirror image. 4mm internal hex back there. And then you've got 3 total plastic clips. You need to push in on the center to release it. Feels weird not working on a Ninja 400, not gonna lie. Feels even weirder being home. Been gone for like 3 weeks. This last stretch was a long one. Okay, once you have those 3 clips out and that fastener, gentle push forward. It's going to release the clips. Put this down here for a moment. Right here, this is the turn signal harness. I'm going to push down in to release the retainer. I'm going to go ahead and push in to release the connector here. Slide that apart. I'm going to move a little further up the fairing. You can see there is a clip that's molded into this side panel that retains that wiring harness. You want to slide that out of there. Right up here, there's another plastic clip. Need to release the center. Back here, this little panel. Got 2 4mm internal hex fasteners. Like so. We're going to go ahead and just pull this panel out. There is a plastic clip that goes through a rubber grommet right there. We'll leave the side fairing on for now. We'll kind of get both of those at the same time as we move through the project. So we'll come over to the other side. Same deal, man. 4mm internal hex. Plastic clip. Pushing on the center to release. Clip 2. Clip 3. There's that. A little push forward on the panel. I can't wait to actually ride this bike someday. It'd be amazing. Okay. Got 2 4mm internal hex here. Once you get those off, pull that out. Turn signal. Release the connector. A little further up the panel. Let's get that wiring harness out of there. I think it's starting to become obvious I've had this bike apart once or twice. Okay. I'm going to collect all of my fairings, and when we come back, we're going to be removing the side panels. so right back here, we've got a 4mm internal hex. Spin that bad boy off. Put that over here to the side. I'm going to grab this side panel. Now what we need to do here is we need to kind of rock it out and then push it forward, okay? When you rock it out, you're releasing this. When you push it forward, you're releasing this one. Having taken this apart and put it back together now multiple times, I got to tell you, pretty impressed with the way Yamaha has put this one together. I think they did a great job. It's modular, it's easy to work on. Seeing some good results in Moto America Twins Cup with this. Hayden Schultz has had some good results. Our little buddy Blake Davis got a nice second place at Laguna. He's gotten a win at Daytona on the Yamaha R7, so clearly it's a solid platform if you want to develop yourself a nice track bike. Okay, so next up, we're going to dive right into this. There is this panel right here, this cast panel we're going to remove. Kind of bolts to the frame and the subframe back here. This is going to get us some access to the exhaust gas sensor. Just makes your install much easier. All right, put that off to the side. And our harness, right, runs up through here. I do need to grab some side cutters real quick. Up through here, and it is this green connector right over here, okay? So what we're gonna wanna do is pop that loose from its mount so I can go ahead and unplug it. Push in on the clips that hold it in place, and then let's rotate it around. It's kind of buried back in there. What we're going to do is we're going to come in here and cut off the cable ties. And hold this in place. There's another one further up here, I believe. Kind of bend that spring tab out of the way. There's another tab here that needs to be bent just a little bit. Okay, should get us a little bit of slack. Back here, slide this out. To release this, you need to reach up in there, pull outward on the release like so. It's going to allow that to come out. Go ahead and feed that down and through. 17mm wrench. Like so. Go ahead and put that off to the side. Now we want to remove the rear set. This just gets us some more access that we're going to need to remove and reinstall the exhaust. So let's go ahead, and these are 6mm internal hex, same size that we used on that cast cover that connected the kind of frame and subframe. so. So I have a long cable tie here. And what I'd like to do is just kind of get this thing up out of the way as much as I can, right? Maybe that makes the most sense. So feed the cable tie through the subframe up here. Kind of through the heel guard. Of course, the thing is twisted. Start that over again. There we go. Just want that kind of held up out of the way. Next, we're going to move up front to the exhaust flanges. These are held on by 12mm nuts. There's plenty of clearance on this bike to get up and in here. Using a 12mm flex socket and a stubby ratchet with a 6-inch 3/8 drive extension. The radiator's totally out of the way with this one, which is nice. Go ahead and remove all these. I'm going to leave just the outer one in place for right now. I've got my 3/8 T-handle here. There are two mounts back here. 12mm hex head. There's one on either side. I'm going to just loosen that one a little bit. I'm going to come on over to the other side. I'm going to take this one out all the way. Save all your OEM hardware. It's some of the nicest hardware you'll find. So you want to keep it. You never know what the future may hold. Okay, now I'm going to come up here, take off that last nut. I'm going to support the system here in the middle. And just remove that last mount bolt back here. Like so. And there is our beautiful OEM R7 exhaust. Okay, so a couple of things that we need to do before we begin installing our Yoshimura full system. Thing one is we need to remove the OEM exhaust hangers down here at the bottom of the frame. They're held on by a 10mm external hex. You really only need to remove the one on this side. You could leave the other one just sitting there idle. You know, obviously that's kind of half-assed, so we're going to go over and take the one off the other side too. As previously stated, never discard any of your hardware. You never know what's going to happen. Just keep all that. Come over to the other side here, show you where that one's at. Not a great angle, but I was able to get that to stick on there long enough to remove that fastener. Bam. All right, when I'm done picking all that shit up, we'll be back. Okay, so here is the exhaust bracket that comes from Yosh. It needs to be mounted on the outside of this bracket here. It comes with all the necessary hardware to get that done. Got 2 nylock nuts, which are nice because you don't need any thread locker on those bad boys. They're gonna hold themselves in place, and they do the same thing for the one that ultimately is gonna hold the strap hanger for the canister, right? So it's nice, you don't need to put any thread locker on their stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and slide that on through. We're now not using a 6, we're gonna use a 5 internal hex T-handle. That bad boy up there. We're gonna go washer, nut. It's always very important to make sure the nylock portion is outboard. Okay, so the part without the insert threads on to the fastener first. And then the part with the insert follows. Okay, get that lower one slid through. There is a rubber grommet that's going to ultimately go into this bracket. I didn't put that in yet because it's much easier to get it bolted up. If you leave the grommet out, that allows the tools to just pass through much easier. So. I've already said this throughout this video a couple of times. This is a full exhaust system. This is not intended for street use. You'll note there is no license plate on our Yamaha R7, which ultimately is going to be turned into a track bike, like all the rest of our bikes. This is designed for closed course operation, which would include track days and or racing, right? If you decide to do something else with it, that is your choice, and neither Yoshimura nor STG are responsible for the decisions you have made. Rubber grommet. I gotta tell you, Yosh, you know, they do a nice job, man. The engineering of all their stuff, like we said this when we did their fender eliminator, the engineering of all their stuff it's thorough, it's complete, it's accurate, things fit very nicely, right? They do a good job. You know, this is a premium brand, you know, I would say that you can easily compare to some of the other perceived premium brands on the market. And over the course of the last several years, they've really worked in that direction, you know, to position themselves as one of the true premium brands. Now this little top hat spacer, okay, we're gonna go ahead and slide that bad boy through into our bracket. Okay, so now we're kind of ready as we go on through our install to get it all mounted up. The gaskets, they just shot out of here. When we took the OEM header off, they were gone. So what are we gonna do? How are we gonna hold those in place? We're gonna take a little bit of just common grease. Last time I packed the wheel bearings on the trailer, I kind of used the majority of the grease I had, and the rest of it was nasty, so I threw the tub out. So now we're reduced to using a little bit of grease from my wheel bearing packer. All right, so I'm just putting a little bit on the edge of that. And do the same for the other one. You can see it doesn't really take a lot, you know, and it's pretty obvious when you start this thing up and it gets hot. That grease goes bye-bye real quickly, so it doesn't have any impact on anything, really. All right. So next up, I mean, there's a couple of different directions we could go. We could put just the header on, which is, I think, what I'm going to do in this video right now. You could probably even slide, with this underslung system like that, you could probably slide the muffler on too and do it all at the same time. But you know, for the purpose of this video, we're gonna go ahead and just go this way. Like I know with our race bikes, once you've had the system on the bike for a while and you go to take it off, you know, I never really pull them apart again, you know, unless you're repairing some crash damage. And get this to dive up in there. There we go, like so. Let's go ahead and get this one in position. That's just going to stabilize everything for us. It's going to make doing the other flange a little bit easier. This is their Works Finish system. I think this is the first time we've installed this. You know, this stuff is supposed to, over time, you know, get a real nice titanium type coloration to it. Pretty excited to see what that looks like. We'll repeat this again throughout the video. It is very, very important with this or any other exhaust, okay? Before you start your bike, okay? Because there's a lot of oil in your skin, right? Obviously, I had grease on my fingers with the stuff we were using to hold the gasket in place. You need to wipe down the system completely to remove all that before you start it. If you don't, what you're going to be looking at, you're going to be looking at your nasty fingerprints burnt into your brand new pipe, and you're going to be pissed because it's going to look like shit, okay? When this strap hanger came, the rubber insert and the stainless steel hanger were independent of one another. They had to be put together. And what I noticed was the rubber strap was excessively long. So what I did is once I had it all fed into here, I trimmed it to length, like so, okay? Next up, let's go ahead and slide. And you'll note I did not tighten. The flange nuts, okay, so blammo. Get that into position. Let's go ahead and get the springs. They include a nice little spring puller. Like so. That into position. When you slide over your canister strap, just make sure that that rubber insert doesn't get just knocked right off of there. Make sure you have that in position on the canister correctly. You know, the strap hanger is kind of shaped to the can. You can see that. Just want to make sure that you've got it in there. correctly. Okay, now what you can do, I'm going to stand up now to get the nut and the washer in. Okay, so just kind of holding that in there with a T-handle. We said this earlier, you know, just make sure that you're getting that nylock nut on correctly. You start with the nylock portion facing outwards. So you're just all threads first, no nylock. The nylock is the part that follows. Like so. Okay, now we're going to stop there. I'm going to come back up front. And now we're going to go ahead and use the stubby little 3/8. And one of the things you want to try and do, you want to try and make sure you have is an even amount of stud protruding from the end of the nut on either side. I'm going to make several passes here. One thing I see done that's very commonly, okay, and notice I'm using a real short ratchet here. One thing I see is so many people grab a nice long 3/8 here and bend the shit out of the exhaust flanges by over torquing. So what I like to do is I like to just use this ratchet. I'm comfortable with it. This is what I've been doing for quite a while now. And then when I'm all done, I'll get some high temp silicone and I'll put it on the end of the threads for the stud on the other side of the nut. And that just works as like basically Loctite. If they do happen to find their way a little bit loose, ultimately the silicone is going to hold it in place, right? It's a race bike or a track bike. You know, when we're at the track, we're taking our bikes apart continually and putting them back together. You know, I get in there and I check that stuff pretty much, you know, at least once around just to make sure. So do what you think is appropriate. If you want to use a little bit longer of a ratchet and torque them a little bit more, just be cognizant of the fact that what you don't want to end up doing is bending the shit out of the flanges, because that just doesn't help anybody. It serves no real purpose. So now we'll come back here. Got a 12 mil, got a 13 millimeter wrench. Go ahead and get this snugged up. Like so. Just like to point out, notice there was no tugging, there was no pulling. This thing literally just bolted right up and it fit great right out of the box. Okay, so as previously stated, Yosh does an excellent job. Our exhaust gas sensor is now going to be in a little bit of a different position. Okay, you can see it's further back in the pipe. This is common with most any aftermarket exhaust. It's not a bad idea to put just a tiny little bit of anti-seize on the threads, only the threads of the exhaust gas sensor. The reason behind that is if you need to remove it for any reason down the road, that just helps to prevent the threads from seizing into the pipe, which is something that can happen over time. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to do that because, as you guys already know, this is going to be like one of 10 exhaust systems that's going to find its way onto this bike. So we don't really have the need to do that. This is going to change the routing a little bit for our exhaust gas sensor. Probably not a ton, but we're going to have some excess that we're going to need to secure. So let's start by just threading it up here into position. Let's go ahead and grab the other end. Make sure you get a good positive engagement there. It's locked in. Slide that in. And now probably the best place to tidy it all up is going to be behind this area right here. So what we can do is we can come back over here. I'm going to need to get a cable tie to secure that. So we're probably going to start from here, this mount right here. That's just a little spring tab. Just bend that like so. That one here, it's going to be like that. So I need a couple of cable ties. I'm going to go grab those right now. We'll be right back. I'll pressure switch here first. Out that in there with the exhaust sensor as well. Cable tie up here. You can see how much excess that we have now. So let's go ahead and tidy this up. Back in here, like so. Okay. Trim our excess. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some rubbing alcohol and we're going to wipe this down. Okay. This is actually what was recommended. I did kind of peek at the instructions. And they recommended rubbing alcohol. You want to try and do a pretty thorough job here. This does ship complete with an exhaust insert to quiet the exhaust noise a little bit. We are not going to install that for the purpose of this video. The only reason that I would ever use that is if we determined, say when we're turning this into a track bike, race bike, if we determined on the dyno that it made more power with the insert, then I would go ahead and do that. It's probably not the case for this bike. We've seen that with the smaller displacement stuff like the 400s, 300s, but I wouldn't anticipate that with this one. So there you go. It is wiped off. And when we come back, we're gonna start putting this bad boy back together. Okay, now let's go ahead and put this bad boy back together. Cut that temporary cable tie off, let that swing back down. Find our rear set mount bracket fasteners. Let's actually put it in the right hole. Anytime you're putting something like this together, what you want to do is you want to kind of get each of the fasteners flush. No real torque like that, right? And then once you have it seated, you can go ahead and apply torque. This isn't the type of fastener I would use a torque wrench on. If you prefer to, by all means, grab yours, look up the spec, and get after it. Next, we have this cast panel. It's going to go on right here. Look at this thing. This is to me is very interesting. Look at the amount of movement in the holes for this thing. I mean, not sure what the reasoning behind that is, but it really makes me think that there's nothing very structural about that, because once it's bolted down, you know, considering all the slop in those holes, I mean, it wouldn't take much for that thing to move around a little bit. Same thing, let's go ahead and just get them all bottomed out. Once we've done that, go ahead and apply some torque. That was a weird noise. Okay, now we've got that done. So in terms of the install itself, right, this is all bolted up. We are ready to go ahead and put the bodywork back on the bike. Slot right there, push back, push in, okay? Then come back here, and get our 4mm T-handle, okay? And this is the fastener that's going to go ahead and hold that in place for us. You can go ahead and just run that down now. We'll grab the other side panel. Exact same process over here. That tab goes right in that slot. Push back, push in. Grab a fastener right there, 4mm internal hex. Back here. Snug that up. Now we're going to go ahead and lower the work table down. Right here, throw in that one plastic pin. Push in the center. Let's get our wiring harness here for our turn signal. Let's go ahead and thread that harness right back through here, like so. Plug in the turn signal connector. Good positive engagement there. Slide it up into its mount position. And then we're going to come back here. Going to grab this panel. Slide that inside the rubber grommet. There's a little locator tab here. I'm going to reach down and grab two of the black colored fasteners. These are 4mm internal hex. Like so. Okay, now next up is going to be this lower panel, right? It's kind of, you know, we left a bunch of this kind of assembled here. That little top hat just fell out of there, no big deal. So we're going to go ahead and slide that into position. That's going to slide over that stud, which will basically hold there for us. Grab a couple of fasteners here. Just gonna leave those loose. We're gonna go over to the other side, get this secured. Go ahead and snug that up. Back over to the other side. Tighten up the two 4mm internal hex, like so. We've got our little 10mm hex nut up here in the front. It's right there. Snug that up. Now we'll get the two mid panels. Now we'll start on the other side here. Okay, there's a little locator tab right here. I'm going to pretend like I can see that too. You need to get that in this hole right here. So notice how I kind of pulled out on that fairing a little bit, and then you kind of dip this down, and then you got to kind of put pressure in on it, right? Like that. You'll know when you have a nice good body line that you got that in there correctly. If you don't get it in there correctly, it's not going to sit flush, and you're going to run the risk of kind of breaking that little tab off. Is that the end of the world? Not really. Do you want to break it off? Nah, you don't. So do what I just showed you and you won't have a problem. I'm going to run these all in. Snug them up. You are bolting plastic to plastic here, okay? Just enough torque that these fasteners don't fall out, but you don't want to go Rambo on this thing and then just destroy the plastic fairings. Make sure this tab slides in here. There is also a clip down here we showed you earlier. It's got to slide into that rubber grommet. Push that in like so. You can take one of these plastic push pins. Make sure that jumps up in there. All right. Once you have that in, you should then be able to get this to engage here. There it is. Push in. Make sure you got it. 4mm internal hex. Gonna go right back here. Go ahead and snug that up. Now we have everybody's favorite, these little plastic clips. Want to get all three of these back in there. There's one. There's two. And there's our third one. Now we'll head on over to the other side. And same gig over here. So that little tab. Little tab, little hole. Slide it in. A little bit of an angle like that. And then you can just kind of feel all that dive right in there, okay? Okay, got our plastic clip that goes through the rubber grommet. I'll make sure this slides back into that slot. Boom. I think that's on the other side now. There it is. Good and secure. Snug that up. Snug that up. Our 3 plastic clips for the inner fender. Okay, last but not least, got this little panel up here in the nose. Slides in, see this tab right here? It's the easiest way to explain it. Just kind of slides in like that, and it kind of jumps itself in there and holds itself initially. Got our last couple of, I gotta find the other one now, plastic clips that need to go in there. Plastic pin. We've got our 2 4mm internal hex fasteners that go on either side, right up front here. And we're almost done with our project. And we can move on to the moment we've all been waiting for. What does it sound like? For any true motorcycle enthusiast that works on their own bike, you know, when you're doing a project like this, you know, exhaust is probably the big one where you just basically cannot wait to get that bad boy started and hear it for the very first time. Okay, and here is the stock exhaust note for reference. Okay, so here we go, the moment of truth. Yes, I already warmed the bike up. You never rev a cold engine, right? Let's hear what it sounds like. All in all, not bad at idle. It's not super loud. We are inside the shop right now, too. This is no insert. We're not going to install the insert for the video. Not gonna lie, that sounds pretty badass. Assuming that you actually made it all the way to the end of this video, I will reiterate again. If you have any questions, leave those in the comment section of this video. I've worked on this bike a fair spot now, and I'm always here to help you get the same result from your project that we got from ours.